Hello guys, what's up? Welcome back to The Question, where you have the questions and I have the answers. I know, I'm actually uploading something more than like once a month, imagine. But no, I actually have a lot more free time on my hands because I am back at home for winter break, as I said in the last video, so you get to see more of me, whether that is a detriment or a pleasure for your day, it's just what it is. Last year I did a video about my expectations for 2022 and I thought it would be fun since I had the time and I had the energy to go back and see was I correct? Did I meet my expectations for 2022? And maybe speculate on what my expectations for 2023 are. So that's what this video is going to be. But before we get started, as always, if you're new to the channel, please like, comment, share, subscribe. I kind of make whatever at this point. And if that's what you're into, you like seeing my face, you just love me so much, then join the party. I also am active on TikTok and Instagram, so if that's up your speed, I will link them in the description below. Without further ado, let's get on to the video. So I had two general categories for my last video, and if the video is shaky, it's because I was gonna charge my selfie stick, which I used to record, and then I didn't, so I'm just holding with my hand again, as always. I had two categories. One was what are my broad expectations, like societal expectations for the year, and then what were my personal expectations. Last year, I said my societal expectations was that one, for the pandemic, that we would consider ourselves out of the pandemic, that we had like crossed the threshold of like the worst it could get, and now we're just gonna taper out. And I said that if anything, it'll become a lot like the flu, where we have yearly updated vaccines that we need to get. But other than that, eventually it's gonna taper out, and that we will have a better social awareness and be more conscientious of health, and I think masks would be more of the norm. And I think for that, I was sort of correct. We do definitely consider ourselves out of the pandemic now. Most places have lifted the majority of their restrictions. Some places still require like COVID vaccine or a clear COVID test to travel or to go into businesses. But for the most part, no one really cares anymore. And people do consider ourselves out of the pandemic, even though health professionals are like, hey, by the way, it's still very much here. You still very much need to like wash your hands and wear a mask if you're sick, practice the things that we have learned. And I think some people do. I know I still wear a mask when I go to class. I wear a mask when I go to public places or go into buildings. And I wash my hands way more than I used to before the pandemic. And I take my health a lot more seriously. Like if I'm sick, even if whether it's COVID or not, and I've gotten COVID twice, but even just with like the flu or with a cold or even with allergies, I'm way more conscientious of my symptoms and how I'm treating myself. And if I'm sick, I will actually stay home instead of forcing myself to go to school or forcing myself to follow through with commitments. Same thing with my dad. My brother has been sick, I think with the flu, since I got home, and my dad has made him like wear a mask every time when he's in the house, so he is not infecting my dad and I. I know he wears a mask when he goes to school. I don't know if he wears a mask normally when he's at school. I do, just because I don't trust college students. But yeah, but no, cases are still pretty high. They just have stopped reporting on it, but a lot of the healthcare professionals I've seen on social media, the few that they do have on the news, has said that they are still very much in the pandemic. So even though we have the mentality that we're no longer in it, we should still act as though we are. And so that's at least what I'm trying to do personally. And I was right, though, that we do now have yearly COVID vaccines that we should get along with the flu vaccine. So I was right on that regard, and I'm pretty proud of that. Good job, me. What are my expectations for COVID in 2023? I think, honestly, it'll be more of the same, of people like opening up and not following protocol as much anymore. And so unless something really big happens in regards to the pandemic, I think that's just how life will be. Like there'll be a few people who still follow protocol and who are still like more cautious when it comes to health and safety. But the majority of people, I think, will just like not follow that. You know, like they'll consider it, but I think they won't, just outright won't, because they feel safe enough not to. Aside from the pandemic, I was talking about like more social going ons, like what's going to happen politically and stuff. And I did not at all predict that, one, we would lose the right to abortion, that ICWA would come into question, or that the Sanctity of Marriage Act would be a thing. I did not think that we would go after literally all that has happened. Because, you know, like we talked about it, but it was never the forefront of anybody's mind. I also didn't predict at all the protests in Iran. So I said everything would be like low key and people are more like politically and socially aware. So maybe stuff would start to change in the long term, but nothing really quick would happen. But I did admittedly overlook how bad things could get. That being said, all of these major things happening all at once has kind of created a quicker response, I think, in the more moderate left or moderate Democrats. I think they've realized that maybe being moderate hasn't been the best. And so even though they still very are moderate, there's been more of like an urgency of like, do you realize that you are now the dog in the burning house, being like, it's fine. Because it's very much not fine. And I do think that we are kind of paying witness to the fall of democracy now. It's not looking good. And last year I was like, I think I'm cautiously optimistic about how this could go. And now I'm not. I'm not at all cautiously optimistic. I don't even know if I'm regularly optimistic. I think I'm just like, it's kind of a dumpster fire right now. And something really, really bad, I think, is going to happen and probably needs to happen to get people to realize how bad it is. But whether that actually like packs the punch it needs to for the politically conscious to actually do something into effect, to actually get moderates to be like, hey, this is actually really bad. We can't be moderate on this anymore. I don't know with what that is going to be, if it's going to happen, but I think that's what we need to really like get everything going. Yeah. So on to personal expectations. I said I'd pretty much like keep being myself and making mentally and emotionally charged mistakes and just being a disaster human being. I think for the most part that's true. I think I'm still a disaster human being. I should have given myself more credit on my ability to grow and change. I think I have become a lot wiser, a lot more in tune. I said I was going to try working on accepting my mental illnesses and the way I interact with the world, and I think I've done that. So I also said I probably wouldn't decide what my major was, but I hope that I did. And guess what? Past me, I did decide on a major, and I love it a lot. So that's something I didn't think would happen that happened. I also said I wasn't going to be in a relationship, and I had to like spit out my drink watching that part, because I was like, oh, poor naive Evelyn, you were actually in 2 relationships in 2022, and both of them ended kind of horribly, but you did them. So that is something, so give yourself more credit. And you learned a lot from them, so that's also really important. And as for trying to go with the flow and getting a live and let live mentality, I think in many cases you still are like that, but I think a lot of that stemmed from this, as you said, non-attachment, but not just like a non-attachment, but it was kind of like a forced non-attachment, like a kind, you force yourself to be neutral so you don't really like get too invested in anything, because when you have personal stakes in something, it hurts, you know? Because life is hard and people are mean, and sometimes you get let down. And so while I'm still more of a go with the flow, I definitely have begun asserting myself more and having opinions on things and getting personally invested in things again, despite knowing that they can hurt, because I've decided that this year I'm gonna have so much personal growth and it's gonna be painful and hard, but I'm gonna do it because I can't possibly become a worse person through this experience, you know? And so I think this year, my expectations is I'm going to learn a lot. I'm going to spend a lot of time alone. I'm going to spend a lot of time with people. And the dryer just went off. That's what that buzz was. But I'm going to grow a lot as a person. That's my expectation. And just testaments to that is I had pitched my friends a podcast called Aggressively Weebish in the last video, and that podcast is no longer running because they aren't friends anymore, and in fact I'm not friends with either of them anymore, which I think is very funny, because I also said that I made a lot of friends and I hope that we're still going to be friends in a year, even though my RA said that I need to, learn to let go. I need to try new things and then not pick them up, and I need to try new things and fail at them and keep doing them, and I need to make friends and realize that we're not going to be friends forever. And yeah, that's what happened, is I made friends, and a year from now we're not friends. And that has been something that's hard for me to accept, but that's life. And ultimately it's not a statement, not a testament to who I am. That's life. There's a lot of people, a lot of friends I made last year who I am still friends with. And I think the important part is for me to not get too caught up in trying to define who I am and figure it all out. But also not to compare who I am now too heavily to who I was, because that has driven me through crisis after crisis after crisis since being back home. And that is definitely not good for my mental state and not good for my mental health. So I think my goals for 2023 is to be less self-aware. I know being self-aware is generally said to be a good thing, but in this case, I want at least to be able to turn the brain off, just enjoy things without overanalyzing them and overthinking them, and just try to be in the moment more, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And let myself enjoy things and let myself have feelings and be stupid and make mistakes, and not try and be on top of it all the time, because it's good to be on top of it for most things. It's good to understand how you react to things and prepare for them, but it's also good to just let yourself live. And so I think that's what I'm going to try and do. So thank you guys so much for still being here, for watching, for listening to me ramble. I hope you guys all have a good 2023. I hope you guys all have a good winter holiday, no matter what winter holiday you are celebrating. With that being said, be excellent to each other. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Party on, dudes.